All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Colleen Withers. I'm the Director of Career Development and Campus Integration here at the Career Center, and excited to chat about resumes and cover letters, templates, tips, all of that type of stuff. A little background on me is that prior to coming to Santa Clara, I was a recruiter. I actually started my career as a campus recruiter. So I do have a fair amount of knowledge from the recruiter side as well, what recruiters are looking for on resumes. But that does mean that sometimes I skip over some real obvious questions that you all might have. So please feel free to interrupt at any point. Would love to dig deeper into this topic. So this is probably a stat that you've all heard, but employers spend 20 seconds or less reviewing a resume. And I can tell you from experience as a recruiter, that is in fact true. There were times that I would simply just glance at a resume, sometimes just make it to the very first section, not even get, to the bottom of the resume. If I didn't see a few key skills I was looking for, I would move on to the next person. So unfortunately, this is in fact true. And now with applicant tracking systems, even more so, because the applicant tracking system will do the first scan and then the human typically does the second scan. So you've got to get through both of those hurdles with resumes. One of the things that we really recommend is tailoring your resume to the job description, making sure you do some research before you submit your resume. And that's primarily focused on what the recruiter hiring manager is looking for. And typically what you can do is look at the job description and look at the first few bullets. Generally, a recruiter will sit down with a hiring manager to try to figure out who they want to hire, what are the key skills that they're looking for. And the first few bullets are usually the first thing that the hiring manager has told the recruiter that they really, really want. It's not always the case, but generally speaking, starting with those first few bullets is going to be what was top of mind for the hiring manager, or sort of like the pain point that the hiring manager has found. So focusing on those skills, and obviously if you have them, making sure that they are reflected in your resume. Secondly, the employer's mission, values, make sure you have a good understanding of the type of company it is and sort of where that intersection lies. These are some basic bullets, what we recommend here in the Career Center. There's a lot of different reasons for the one-page concept, and I'm sure many of you have already heard that. There will be some grad students who might be able to get away with a two-page resume, but for most of our undergrads, we really do recommend the one page. Primarily, it's because of what I just said. As a recruiter, I didn't even get to the bottom of the first page, let alone to that second page. So being as concise as possible. It does not mean that you put everything you've ever done on your resume, and it does not necessarily mean that it needs to be things from high school. We do recommend that once you get to about junior year of undergrad, you take off all the high school things. So I know that can also be difficult for students when they worked so hard in high school to get to college. And then we're like, yeah, just take all that off. So that's a little side note. Making sure not to have a photo or anything, even the columns, we really do not recommend. So a lot of students, particularly if they are well versed in Canva, they're going to go on there and see those Canva templates. And although visually they are very pretty, they oftentimes have the photo on the top. They have two columns. One column is a different color than the other. They maybe have like a soft skills section on one side. So we've been told that applicant tracking systems do not like those resumes. So sometimes the information can go into an applicant tracking system and be parsed incorrectly. So it just turns out strange. We've also heard that at times it just gets spit out completely, and the student will never know that even though they tried to submit their resume, it never actually got to the recruiter. So we like to avoid the Canva templates. We like to avoid a lot of the Google templates. Even if you go to Google and like type in resume template, those are not the templates that we recommend. And I'll show you, we do have a spot on our Career Center website where we have templates that we do recommend. Unfortunately, they are the real boring, no graphics, no photos, things like that. Other two big things, typos, spelling errors. I mean, that's just a red flag for any recruiter. I know it definitely was for me when I was a recruiter. If you can't bother to do a spell check on your resume, then I'm not really confident that you're the right person for the job. Falsified or inflated information. This one can be tough. I think you should go in with confidence that you have some skills, but you don't want to overinflate what you did. And be prepared to answer any question for anything that's on your resume. So if you did a project, be prepared to talk about it. And if you used any type of tool like Python or SQL or something like that, be prepared to say how you used that tool. If you're going to list it, be prepared to say how you used it. I'm going to start through a few of the sections just to give a general overview. Specifically on the education, we do recommend that you put the education on the top. Again, unless you are a graduate student who has a fair amount of work, we do recommend the education at the very top because it is what the recruiter is going to see first. This is a suggested format, but the one thing I want to note is that the related coursework or relevant coursework is really important. A lot of our students have learned a lot, have been to a lot of classes, and I think highlighting that right off the bat is important, especially if there's a certain class you need to have taken to apply for an internship. That will show the recruiter right off the start that that's there. Any major GPA over 3.0, we recommend listing. Obviously, the higher, the better. And then any honors or awards, things like that at the top as well. I'd say if there are some associations or clubs that you have joined, and it's not going to be in like a leadership section, a leadership experience section, I would put them here underneath the related coursework, a sort of clubs section to list those out. Sometimes those can also get buried if you put that all the way at the bottom in activities. So that's something to consider when talking to students. All right, so one thing that we also recommend within the sections is thinking about all the different types of experience the student has. So I've met with a lot of students who unfortunately just, I have no experience, I haven't done anything. And then when you sort of drill down with them, okay, well, are you a member of a club? Have you ever helped lead an event? Have you ever had to create a Canva graphic for that event? Have you ever had to send out emails to get people to come? Anything about knowing the type of extracurricular activities that you've done can definitely be something that's a piece within the resume. So for students who don't have as much what they consider like internship work experience, we also recommend a section that would be leadership experience, or a section that would be volunteer experience, or a section that would be project experience. So there's a lot of different options depending on what the student has or has not done. One of the other things that I really like to recommend to students is to have a document that maybe is a couple pages with all the things that they've done. And then depending on the position that they're applying for, pulling over that section into the one-page document that they're going to actually submit for that one experience. Because otherwise it's hard to keep track of everything. So I recommend a master document and then pulling over certain pieces from there. Jeff just put a little note in the chat. Thank you, Jeff. Future known coursework is helpful as well, for sure. If they are planning to take something next semester, next quarter, and they want to go ahead and add that, it's highly recommended as well to know sort of where they are in the process. Some employers obviously have been recruiting from Santa Clara for a really long time, so they're very familiar with sort of the structure of the courses. So when you're taking a closer look at the bullets, this is our recommended sequence. So it's the acronym CAR. It stands for context, action, and result. So I feel like a lot of students, this is where the struggle really begins. So the focus on the task is what students think of when you think of like, okay, I worked in anthropology, I was dealing with customers and I worked behind the register, and that would be a task. That would be something that you did. What we really want to focus on is the action, but then the impact or the result of what happened. So trying to reframe the bullets that the students maybe have come up with so far to add something actionable at the end. When it comes to, say, like a customer service type job, that could be as easy as, handling customer service inquiries, finding the results. So not only answering the questions, but researching the answers to the questions. Like the result is that the customers were happier in the end. So you're kind of looking for an overarching impact bullet, and providing some details around that so that the reader is interested in hearing what the impact was. For academic projects, lots of times that can be a problem that was given to a team to find the solution for, and then the outcome is a presentation that they did to the class or to a group, something like that. If possible, making things quantifiable is also great for multiple reasons, but just from a human recruiter viewpoint, when you read through a resume and when you do it over and over again, it tends to get boring. And so when you've got some numbers and some quantifiable things in there, that steers your attention to those things. So it's great to say, if possible, that you helped create a process that made something move faster or made something flow better. Anything like that, 10 times better, 5 times better. It also doesn't have to be very specific. A lot of times it can be a more general type quantifiable bullet. This is an example of one of the bullets that we recommended. So the beginning, the context that you're sort of setting up is that there were participants, they had no or little experience with Excel. So the action item that you took was developing the content. So that would be the start of your bullet. So a strong action word at the very front of the bullet, making sure that you don't then overuse that strong action verb. You should only use the one word once, and then, it could be developed, it could be led, it could be managed. There's a lot of different other strong action verbs at the front. But in this instance, they were developing the content, they mentioned Excel, and then they taught the class. And that result was an increased understanding and knowledge for the people who attended. So you can see how there's 3 different sections within that. The other thing I really love about this is the focus on Excel and actually mentioning Excel. I found that a lot of students think, oh, everybody knows Excel. I don't need to mention that in a bullet. But actually, it's really helpful for recruiters and hiring managers to know not only that you are familiar with the Microsoft Office suite, but how specifically you've used it. So in this instance, I would recommend that if you have a skills section, which some students do, and maybe you've listed Microsoft Office, Google Slides, things like that, you also think about the times that you use those tools and how you can showcase that in a bullet. So that can help as well. A lot of students now use Canva for things, and that's a great resource to a lot of employers who just, that's some of the basic things that they might need you to do at any type of company. So thinking about mentioning the tools. So in that instance, mentioning Excel, mentioning Canva, mentioning Google Slides, whatever it was that you used, I would highly recommend being specific. The other thing is to think about this as broad as possible. So I talked about this a little bit, but the additional experiences, accomplishments, a lot of times when we have appointments with students, the beginning is really a conversation about all the different things that they do and what that they really want to highlight about themselves. And that's why that one massive document is great, because maybe you do some ideation around the leadership experience that you had. And maybe that's just, being the VP of marketing for some kind of a club. Well, let's dig deeper in that. To be the VP of marketing for that club, what did you have to do? So that would be a significant piece of that leadership experience section within a resume. We also recommend you do spell out the type of degree, not just the major. So for students in the business school, obviously the Bachelor's of Science in Commerce is what we recommend. And then as well, on the top, the one thing I will mention, tying in your LinkedIn. If you a LinkedIn profile, we highly recommend that all students who have a resume also have a LinkedIn profile. And that is because most of the time, recruiters, we're going to get your resume. They're also going to go to LinkedIn and look for you because they like to see both sides of your profile. And then as well, for students who are more technical, a GitHub was highly recommended as well. And what I would do is put that at the very top. So you'd have your name, you'd have city, state, you'd have a phone number, a LinkedIn, and a GitHub right there. As well, if you have a student in the arts, a portfolio, a link to their portfolio or a personal website is also great to have right at the top if you want to put more design on that section. All right. Any questions about the resumes before I go into the cover letter? Okay. So the cover letter, students ask this all the time. Do I really have to do the cover letter? The answer is yes. If the cover letter is even optional, 100% you need to do it. No doubt about it. Any chance that you get to explain more about who you are and why you want the job is highly recommended. So the recommendation is to always write it. I also tell students that the recruiter, the hiring manager, they might read it, they might not, but that's not, for neither here nor there. To focus on writing something that's concise, but not to also overthink it or be too concerned about the cover letter, because that sometimes happens with students as well. So there's three main parts to the cover letter: the intent, the fit, and then the close. Personally, I find that each section needs to be 2 or 3 sentences, and that's about it. So again, you don't need to overthink it. And again, there should be a template that you have for it, meaning you've got that massive document with all your resume pieces. You also have a cover letter document with some basic information, and then you're going to tailor the cover letter to each organization that you're applying for. So the intent, so that first paragraph that's 2 or 3 sentences, you want to explain the type of work and why you're seeking it. So why you think that you would be great at that specific job, and making this personal, specific to you, if possible, is really the way to highlight it. And the reason, and I think what sometimes happens with students when they think, oh, I'll do anything, I'd really be open to any kind of job. Well, when you hear that as a recruiter or a hiring manager, what you hear is that the student's going to jump around. And that's not what you want to hear. You don't want to hire someone, invest in training in them, and then see them jump to a different division or somewhere else. So although I personally appreciate that you're open to do a lot of different things, what you want to showcase on the cover letter is confidence in that type of job and in that type of work. So explaining why that specific position is what you want to do is really what you're looking for in that opening cover letter piece. Secondly, the fit. So thinking about your qualifications, how that relates. And what you really want to do is make sure that you're not just reiterating what's on your resume, but you want to go a little bit more in depth. So if you can tell a story, that is ideal. because within that, a recruiter will read it and know a little bit more about you right off the bat. This is also very similar to the about section or the summary section in LinkedIn. It gives you a chance to tell a little bit more personal story than the resume lets you do. The other thing to think about with the cover letter is that you are trying to convince the organization of how you can help them. So how you can convince them that the job you'll be doing will be helping with their pain points. So if the hiring manager is struggling because they have all these events coming up and they don't have anyone to do an email marketing campaign or do the graphics or set things up in a platform, what you want to do is convince them that you're the person that can fix that pain point for them. So it's a little bit of a change in mindset sometimes for students who think about not only what you're going to get from the job, but what you can do for them to help them fix whatever it is that their pain point was, because there's typically was a pain point for them to want to hire this person. And then the close is basically just focusing on requests for an interview, thanking the reader for having time to consider them, focusing on, next steps. I would love to hear from you. Making the second paragraph, the one that's more focused on the company, is also what I would recommend. So keeping an eye on any recent news about the company, any recent developments. I definitely suggest following the company on LinkedIn so that you can see if something popped up recently. Maybe there was a press release, anything like that you could indicate in that section why not only do you want that specific job, but why do you want that job at that company? And again, circling back with the mission and vision of the company is also a great option. So I was going to do a quick demo of these two platforms. But first, if anyone has a question, feel free to chime in. Oh, and it looks like someone had a question about GitHub. So it's called GitHub. So it's GITHUB, GitHub. It's very common with our STEM students. So a lot of computer science, engineering, it gives them a place to showcase some of their work around computer science and coding and things like that. So let me know if any further questions on that one. Oh, sounds good. All right. So this page I wanted to highlight first, which is focused on our Career Center website. So we didn't just make some changes over the summer. So this job prep toolkit now has been updated. So when you are working with students, please feel free to direct them to the job prep toolkit section, as well as this sample resume section. So when I click on job prep toolkit here, and then I go to all of our resources here, which we have a lot. This resume one will take you to VMOC, which I will show you in a second, but also this sample resume and resume template section. And there's a lot of information in here for students to take a look at. You can even walk through it with your student. And it gives you different types of templates based on where they are, because we know that students are all different majors, all different focuses for what they're looking to do. So there's just tons and tons of info in there. And then as well, within the job prep toolkit, we've got a resume checklist, and then what I just mentioned, the accomplishment-based statements. So there's a little bit more info on that. This worksheet I wanted to call out as well. So it really does help them go from the three different pieces to focus on that result or that impact statement. So there's a little worksheet here too that you can pull up with a student, or even assign in a class if you wanted. All right. I'm going to skip to VMOC in a second, but also just wanted to showcase here the resume and cover letter guide has also been updated. Sample cover letters with templates and things like that are all here as well, so that when students have questions, even specifically certain majors, if you're working with a certain kind of student population, that's all been updated as well. And then for the 24/7 resume tool, we have a tool called VMock. And it's really great because it gives you an idea of what an applicant tracking system looks like and what is going to happen when your resume goes through that applicant tracking system. And that's key, like I mentioned, that is now the first barrier that students have to hit. So within the behind the scenes, so sort of from like the recruiter perspective, what they do is they put their position out there into the world, and then when they're collecting the resumes, they put in triggers for what they want. So maybe it's a specific keyword, maybe it's a Santa Clara student who has a marketing degree or is majoring in marketing. So there's certain triggers that they're looking for behind the scenes. So you want to make sure that you're meeting, as many of those things from the job description as possible, because it's actually the AI in an applicant tracking system that's pulling those out and sort of ranking you. So if you can get into the top 10 resumes in an applicant tracking system, then you're going to get to the human who then looks at the rest of your resume from a more holistic point of view. So within VMock, I wanted to just give you a brief look at what that looks like. If my system will work, let me see if I can try it this way. The nice thing about VMock is that it will use your single sign-on. So all students have access to sign on to VMock with their single sign-on, and then they can upload a resume. So I did a test upload just for this webinar so that people could see what it looks like. And this is what the dashboard will look like from students. So I do want to say one caveat. This is a tool that's available 24/7 for students, but it's not at all perfect. So we do recommend that students upload their resume. They have 10 uploads of every calendar year, and they can always ask for more, and the uploads are actually refreshed every year. So we do recommend that they utilize this VMock system, but then we also recommend that they run their resume by a human, because the human interaction is also obviously a very important piece. So once you upload a resume, you can go directly into this edit resume, which is a smart editor. Or if you want to, you can go ahead and put it into a template. So these are our 5 recommended templates, and the students could choose one of these 5 templates and then build the resume from there. That's also an option. So the feedback that was first added here, you can see it's 3 different sections or types of feedback. One is going to be about those impact statements. One's going to be more about the presentation. So if one bullet has a period, does every bullet have a period? Are the dates all lined up on the right-hand side? Do the dates all have the same format? So things like that, that the human eye might not catch, but that the AI would, and that you'll see makes the resume look better on the other end. And then the competencies. Are you showcasing enough of your leadership skills, of your teamwork skills? Things like that. So you can view the detailed feedback here, and it actually gives you different language and suggestions. So again, it's a great tool for students. And then if you want to go ahead and build the resume, it also has this section which is called Smart Editor, and it will take you, help you pick a template, and then it will take you through that section. And it actually will help you kind of move some of those sections around if students want to do that, focus on the layout, all of that. So I'm not going to go too much further into this. Just wanted to highlight it for those of you who are actively working with students, that I highly recommend that they use that. The best thing to do is to upload in a PDF, actually. That is the recommended use for VMOC. Did that answer your question, Jen?
Yes, that's just amazing to me that it can do that.
Yeah.
You take a picture and then edit it like that.
Yes. Yes, I know. Yeah. Um,
It's, I will reiterate Colleen, what Colleen said. It is not perfect. It will not catch everything, and
no.
it will obliterate some things, but it is a very good tool.
Yeah, it's a good starting place for students, especially if they've never built a resume before, or if they have a resume that's very task oriented. What you'll see sometimes if you're working a lot with students is that, the bullets are this tiny, right? And it's just like assisted customers. And so at that point, a system like this is a great place to start. And then I do recommend for sure you go speak to a human afterward, because sometimes then things get more complicated. And then the students, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I on the editors, I always tell the students you need to find 3 people that love you enough they're not afraid to make you cry and
Yeah.
continue making you cry until it is perfect.
Yes.
And that's usually only one of 2 parents, not both.
Right. I hear you. Yeah, definitely. Sometimes too, it helps with spacing issues. So sometimes, students are so focused on creating a bullet and then they end up with one tiny word over here on the bottom. And it's like, you just use that whole second line of real estate and either use it, right? Make it really impactful, or cut it down to one line. It's perfectly fine to have a 2-line bullet. But use that real estate if you're gonna throw it out there, then definitely use the whole space. The only other thing to note is you can then download the resume out of VMOC, which I would highly recommend when you go speak to those humans, because then you can edit however you'd like. Yeah. And then the one other tool that I wanted to recommend is called JobScan. And this is a really interesting tool. I only recommend it to students to use the free version. I don't recommend the paid version, only because it's something else to pay for. But what you do is you upload the actual job description that you're applying for, and then you upload your resume, and it searches like the applicant tracking system would for that specific job description. So it's not helping you build your resume from scratch. It's not analyzing it from that angle. It's analyzing it based on a specific job description. And JobScan, the free version lets you do 5 free uploads a month. So I feel like that gives students a good concept of what that applicant tracking system is doing to your resume in relation to a specific job that they might want. I don't feel like you need more than that to really get the picture of what's happening on the back end. Perfect. So the takeaways I would say are within the Career Center's website. Remember to look at the job prep toolkit, because that's all that has been updated over the summer. Particularly, again, we're looking at this middle section, the resume and the cover letter. We also have a lot of other resources that I will cover in a different webinar, but this one I would just focus on these two. A lot of great examples, and then go ahead and jump into the VMOC tool if you're ready and interested, and then from there, focused on the next step. So I did just want to mention, I will be having a LinkedIn and job search section, another webinar like this that I will do live, but also record on the 24th, again at noon. And on that one, I'm really going to cover something called the LinkedIn alumni tool. For any of those that are interested in or know about that, that's how to find people on LinkedIn who work at the companies that you're interested in working at, and then some job search strategies as well. In the meantime, I also wanted to highlight this session about ChatGPT that we're hosting on October 18th. This is a virtual webinar, and we are having an outside speaker host this webinar. He's actually written a book about ChatGPT. We have a lot of students, obviously, that have questions about that. And it's focusing on what's the appropriate way to use it. Maybe it's cover letters, maybe it's the summary section of your LinkedIn profile. How can you use it to actually help and accelerate your job search? So those are 2 sessions coming up. And then this is everything we're doing here in the Career Center. So we did have a resume lab this morning for students who are still maybe in the STEM fields. We do have a career fair on Wednesday focused on the STEM fields, and then a whole lot of other events still going on. So meetups, coffee chats, and all sorts of stuff. So wanted to recommend all of this. Students sign up for on Handshake. Any questions right